It's a really great honor to be here among so many talented women and to be able to speak about my favorite topic, big data, is really the best start that I could have asked for this day. So thank you for being here. And I will share with you in, I guess, about 30 minutes, the impact that big data has been having on various aspects of our society. You know, the boom in big data is not something that is new, right? We are seeing a phenomenal boom in data, whether it is data that is created by the instrumentation that is happening around us, the social media. You know, if you look at any numbers and figures, you'll see that almost like people will say, 80% of the world's data got created in the last 2 years, which is pretty amazing. And it's not just that the volumes are really high, but this data is coming from all kinds of sources. It's in all different kinds of forms. One of the things that I find pretty interesting is that when you look at the electric meters in our house, right, just in our lifetime, the readings used to be taken off these meters every quarter. And it would be averaged when you would get the bill over a 3-month period. And then it went from every quarter to every month. And now with smart meters, the readings are taken every 15 minutes. And if you think about every 15 minutes, and San Jose alone has a population of close to 1 million people, how much of data is being collected? There are lots of different trends that are happening that I've spent all my career in data management. And working with clients and the technology before, it used to be a very key part in terms of the data strategy that companies had as to what data they wanted to really collect and analyze. Partly that was because the technology itself did not allow that you could just take any kind of data and keep it and store it and analyze it. So from a cost reasons and just the complexity of managing that data made people really be selective about what were they storing, what were they analyzing. And that has completely changed now, that enterprises are storing all kinds of data without sometimes even knowing whether it's going to be relevant, whether it's not going to be important, what are they going to do with it. But it's pretty key decision that they are making that they realize that they should not throw away this data. And the kinds of use cases, the applications that we are seeing is very interesting, very different. Every day you learn about a different use that is being that this data is being put to, and the kind of information or analysis or insights that are being gained from this. Today I picked a few cases which show that the impact or the profound impact that this data is having on our lives. If we look at the example, this is in the automotive industry. Again, a transformation that has happened when you look at the amount of data that is generated by the cars that we drive and the kind of information that this data can help determine. Telematics data is become, if you are in the insurance space or you talk to people in the insurance space, it is considered as revolutionizing how insurance is being done of drivers. So, we've worked with a lot of automotive companies as well as insurance companies. And they are leveraging this telematics data in different ways. If you go to get yourself insured today, it's not just about how much driving experience you have, for how long have you been driving, and which area do you live in. But analysis can be done of how much do you drive, where do you drive, at what times of the day do you drive, what is the typical weather conditions in the areas that you drive. And that is determining what you pay to drive on the road. So, you see these taglines with various insurance companies that, pay for what you use, which is pay for how much you drive. And all this is made possible by gathering a lot of this telematics data. Now, this data is not just used to figure out, what the driver's insurance needs to be, but also in terms of, as this data is gathered from vehicles, there is, preventive maintenance information that can be passed on to the owners of the vehicles. Alerts can be generated so as to prevent the people getting stuck on the road with, where they haven't checked their car tire pressure, where, they are running out of fuel. So all kinds of information like this can be passed on to the drivers. Now, when this information is enriched by weather data and the, what is happening on the road when you are driving, different kinds of services are available. I mean, we all use this, right? Now, the days of using a GPS device, which is only telling you about, where to turn left or right, are over, right? You want something which in real time is directing you to the best possible route to take from point A to point B. What is, I don't know, there are certain things that are pointed out which, one can debate if they are right or wrong, that, there's a cop ahead and there is a, camera on this light that you're crossing. But all of that is being made possible by really capturing what we call as big data and analyzing it. Now, it's not just the automotive industry. This is some work that we had done with a police department in a certain area, where they were seeing an increase in crime every year by about 2.5%. So when they did the analysis that, how many cops do they need on the road to really help prevent this crime, it was 500 extra cops are needed. It would have taken them about 6 years to get this number of cops. And with the budget constraints and cuts that they were facing, it was not possible to solve this problem by adding more workforce. So instead, what they did was relied on data. So they they were already capturing data, right? But this data was in different systems of record, and they were not getting a consolidated view from all these different systems of record. So what was done was they combined or tried to get a single view of the data from these different systems of record, combining it with data that they could get in real time from, the areas where there was more crime. And by combining the two, they were able to actually prevent and reduce crime by almost 30%, and which is phenomenal, right? Now, there's a lot more that was done here. This was just one statistics that I wanted to point out. When the system was tested for about a 3-day pilot was run, and within 2 hours, there were 70 crimes that they were able to either prevent or get to it and, catch the right people. And typically, it would take them that, to even, get to those kinds of numbers would take at least about an entire weekend is what, it used to typically take. But in a 2-hour period, preventing 70 of those is what they saw just in the pilot. And the numbers kept increasing, that in a month, they were able to either prevent or catch criminals, which were different types of crimes, about 1,200 of those. So when this thing was rolled out, this is something that is really helping make our lives safe. So we hear about big data in the context of, oh, you get the right promotion at the right time. It's not just about advertising. It is not just about getting coupons and promotions and what to buy and how much more to buy. I mean, that is definitely one aspect of what is possible with big data. But what personally gets me excited about big data is the impact that it is having in in different realms of the society which were just not possible before. So going to some of the traditional use cases that we've seen, this is an email, a marketing company, which a lot of, I think they have about close to 500,000 SMBs that leverage them for doing email campaigns, giving promotions and coupons. And they typically send about 35 billion, with a B, emails every year to their clientele. And now there's a lot of analysis that can be done on these emails, right? So one of the things that they did was analyzed at what time of the day the emails were being sent and correlated that with the opens or the clicks that they got in the emails. And it was determined that they were able to segment this at an individual level and figure out that what's the best time to send an email like this to a certain individual to get a click or an opening of the email to happen. Because there are, say, working moms, they may not be looking at their emails during the day, but if you send it, say, between 8 or 10 p.m. at night, then the chances of the email being opened increases. So this was just one aspect of the analysis. And this resulted in a big boost in the email campaigns that their clients were running. Now, the next step that they're going to is analyzing the contents of these emails, right? That how to word certain things, what to say in those emails so that it gets people to really take the desired action, which is the intent of those emails. So it started by what time of the day, figuring that out, optimizing that on not a group of people, but on a per individual, that is a segment of one. And then the next step is analyzing the content of the email so that they can figure out what words, what sentences, what do you put at the top, what do you put in the subject, what do you put in the opening sentence, how do you close it? Does that have a bearing on the traction or of the email campaigns itself? So so people start small, and then of course they want to they grow. That's really how a lot of these big data projects are starting. So it's like you have to bite in small chunks, and that's when you start seeing success around analyzing and getting your arms around big data. This is a retail bank, and traditionally we've seen that not just in case of retail banks, right? But as different businesses have been trying to understand the customer, they used to rely on CRM systems combined with transactional systems. That is, who's the customer, what's their name, what's the demographic, what's their age, what are their preferences. Combine that with what are they buying, what are they ordering, how much, which are actual transactions. And that used to be a way to figure out who is your customer. Now, in today's world, that is not sufficient, right? In Now it's become really important that the understanding that you have of the customer by your traditional systems of records which exist inside your enterprise, combining those or enriching those with the profiles of these customers outside the enterprise. And in this case, what was done was that they started by building about 300,000 social profiles. And this was not, they did not know at the time that, whether it's their customer or not, but really building social profiles of people. And from 300,000, they went to about 50 million, right, over a period of time. And then those 50 million social profiles were compared with almost 100 million profiles that they had inside the enterprise, which was based on CRM data, transactional data, combining those. Now, this resulted in almost quadrillion comparisons, right? Because there's no indication here that the profiles that have been built using the social media, are they really your customers or not? So doing these comparisons, they were able to figure out and enrich the information that they had about their customers inside the enterprise. And that resulted in an uplift in terms of cross-sell, upsell opportunities, because there was more information that they were able to glean from what was not available to them inside their own company about those customers, right? So this is like building these social profiles itself is a big data project, because this requires, without getting into all the technology details, but if there is interest, I would love to share with you that how much of analytics is needed to even build these social profiles. Because people have different social handles. They may have, their name may not really be anywhere in that handle. So how do you figure out that these 5 handles really belong to this one individual? Understanding or deciphering, what is their intent versus what is stated. All of this is a very interesting problem that is solved using analytics, in this specific case around text analytics. And the pattern that you will see here, and I'm sure as you read about different articles and possibilities of big data, every industry, whether it is finance or insurance or healthcare or retail, banking, every industry is leveraging big data to solve problems that they were not able to solve before. Now, in this particular case, this was work that we did with the University of Ontario in Toronto. And, if you, this was with the neonatal center. And, according to the World Health Organization, there are 15 million premature babies that are born every year. And almost 1 million of those lose their lives in the first 30 days. And many of them are in ICUs. They are being monitored. All kinds of data is being gathered about them. KPIs like, heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and so on. But what was happening before was that a sample of this data was being used to aggregate into 2 or 3 readings that the doctors or the nurses saw, which would be a way for them to figure out, is the baby in good health or not? Now, fast forward to a couple of years back, what is being done now is that there's almost when we started working with them, we found that there are 1,000 pieces of information per second that are being generated and captured about these babies. And you can take that to any patient, right? But in this specific case, it was around premature babies. And to analyze 1,000 pieces of information per second, like, you cannot do that without technology. So what was done was that in the work that we did with them, these 1,000 pieces of information, and these were all being captured, were analyzed. We showed the patterns that were in this data, correlated those patterns and what this data was telling the subject matter experts, that is the doctors and nurses, with the notes that the doctors and nurses took, correlated it with patient history, and things around not just the patient, but their patient history or their medical history of the immediate family. And with all of that, the end result of this, and this was not like an overnight project, right? It was done over a pretty extended period of time, tested initially with about 120 babies in the neonatal center. And one of the really exciting outcome of this was that the doctors and the nurses could predict the onset of an infection in a newborn baby 24 hours in advance. And that, those 24 hours runway makes the difference between would that child survive or not. And I personally feel this is one of the huge steps from a technology standpoint in terms of leveraging big data and the impact that it is having on our lives. And this work has been taken now outside of, obviously, Canada to the US, to China, to many other countries. And it is not limited just to, obviously, the newborn babies here. There is a lot of work that is being done in terms of, predicting and preventing, or patients suffering from brain hemorrhage, or, being able to predict a stroke before it happens. In cancer research, there's work that has been done with the Emory University. This is, again, in terms of, in the emergency room, where, I hope none of you have ever been there, but if you have, you would see that there are all kinds of, things keep beeping all the time, which is stressful for the caregivers of the patient. It is stressful for the doctors and nurses that are on duty. And often, the key indicators may get missed. So, if you want to read about it, and, if you were to Google on Emory University and, big data, you could see that, again, key indicators, again, using, big data technology, are really, filtering the noise from the signal and identifying which indicators to really pay attention to and what actions to take was one of the outcomes there. So, this data baby story is something that it really resonates with me. And every time I like to share this with more and more people, because what I find is that, more awareness is needed as to what the possibilities are around big data. And, spreading this to other people is important, so that, this is, so that this technology, or the work that, a lot of you are doing and a lot of people in the industry are doing, is really leveraged to have even a bigger impact on our society. And now, spending, just a little bit of time on, what on the technology side of it, as to, what is this architecture looking like? So what you see here, if you follow from sort of the left to the right, there are different sources of data on the left-hand side, right? Whether it is sensor data, whether it is text, whether it is video streaming, whether it is a lot of just structured data, that all of this data, it's growing in volumes, right? We hear now about petabytes of data, right? And before, if I've, like I said, right, we've all worked with or have had some interaction with the IT shops. And to hear petabytes of data, even 10 years ago was like, you never heard that. But now there is that volume of data. And it's not just, data that can fit. There are different types. It's very structured, it is unstructured, it is semi-structured. And what is possible now is that all of this data can land inside the enterprise in where there's technology that makes it easy and cost-effective to store all of this data. And then a lot of these companies, what are they doing? They are exploring that data, they are searching, they are discovering what are the different patterns in this data. And based on that analysis, this data may stay where it has landed. You'll hear terms like, this is the data lake, right? Which is that's where all the data in the enterprise is landing. Then it is being explored, different patterns are being discovered, and this data may then move to other different technologies inside the enterprise where more analysis of the data can be done. So in today's world, and with the advancements that have happened in the technology in the last few years, it's now possible to store this data in a very cost-effective way, to analyze this data. And this analysis is not just based on doing keyword searches on this data, but really extracting information from different pieces of this data, stitching it all together. And as like one of my colleagues puts it, that it is like you have different pieces of the puzzle, and you can put it all together to really see what is the picture that is emerging, which is based on the different kinds of outcomes that we saw, whether it is to prevent crime, whether it is to fight diseases, whether it is to understand your customer better. This customer could be a consumer of the products. This customer could be a patient that you're treating. And really being able to get a 360-degree view of an entity is making it possible to get these exciting outcomes which are impacting all of our lives. So the good news is there is a lot of advancements in the technology that is making all of this possible. There is room for more, and embracing this, using this, or creating, there's still many unsolved problems as well, so it's not like we are done. You'll hear terms like data scientists. There is a new class of, I guess, a workforce that is emerging, which is really trying to get their arms around this data, analyzing this data. These people have, math, statistics, data mining experience, combining that with their subject matter expertise, like this work that we did with the University of Ontario. It's not just that the project was implemented by just using pure technology. Subject matter expertise was very important here, which were the doctors and the nurses. So domain expertise, it cannot be undermined as these projects are being implemented, as these outcomes are being seen. So I think technology and domain expertise is making all of this possible. So these are clearly very exciting times in terms of what is possible, what more can be done in solving problems that we could not have dreamt of solving this easily, I would say, a few years from now. I hope this create some interest in learning more about this. And I'm sure that a lot of you are already have exciting stories like this, and would love to catch up with you and hear from you and learn from you. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful conference, and hope to see a lot more of you in the and be able to work with you in the big data space. So thank you.
Questions?
Sure, I'm coming. Excuse me. Hi, thank you so much, Anjul, for a great presentation and a demonstration of all the great applications of big data. Just a logistical thing, I wonder if you could call back one of those slides that you had at the very end, which talks about the entire process of what's the input, what's the process, and what's the outcome. I wonder if you could go back to that slide, because I thought that was a very valuable slide. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's see. I'm not sure we can go back to it, but let's see. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Now this is, and even though we say it's the IBM Big Data Platform, this is not really just limited to IBM. I mean, obviously, I represent IBM, but this is a pattern that has emerged in the industry in the last few years. And we put this picture together to share that, as we worked with different industries, that, what are the key ingredients or pieces of technology that have to be considered as a big data platform is being built? Sometimes people will say either or, right? It's not an either or. There's a lot of work that has happened in the open source community here. So what is referred to as, on the left-hand side, it's based on Apache Hadoop MapReduce technology. You'll hear people refer to that as data lake. So that's where all different types of data can land in the enterprise. It leverages commodity hardware. So the cost of storing, managing, analyzing this data has gone down substantially from what we had seen before. And once this data, whether it's structured, semi-structured, unstructured, lands here, then there are pieces of technology that are available on top of the Apache Hadoop stack, which allow you to explore this, to analyze this, to filter it. And for any analysis, this data ultimately has to reach a structured form. And then you can use things like structured query language to access this data. There are NoSQL paradigms that are now very prevalent to access a lot of this data. And then there is, a lot of this data is good for doing historical analysis, but you need real-time capabilities, like especially as we talked about, the police department use case. That was not just based on, what data is in the historical or systems of record, but these were streams of data coming in real time so that action can be taken based on that analysis. So there is batch-oriented, real-time, warehousing aspect, and all of this can be combined, and different pieces of information can be extracted from these different systems, and you can do what you see as exploration, discovery, descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, and it's going all the way to cognitive computing, which is really around being able to ask the question and get the answer and do natural language processing. So these are different attributes of the big data platform.